Hi, everybody. Lauren Rubis here, and we're experimenting with the format here about this particular video podcast on talking about leadership and belonging, and we just think that belonging is such an important topic, and really want to see if we can make it more valuable and useful to you and our other audience that we're still growing. And also really differentiate this from our Lead In with Lauren that we do on Mondays and really make it of value. Can we make a few minutes of value for you that you can get out of this? And also connected to the Twitch 10:30 Pacific time call that I have, or live streaming that I have, where I riff on leadership issues based on current news that's just right in front of us and how we can draw lessons from it. So what I want to do is challenge you about your assumptions, your leadership assumptions about belonging, about how you've thought about it, and how challenging those assumptions might lead to a greater insight or a more complete view, or open your and my thinking onto how we might create better conditions for belonging. Because we are the completion of the diversity, equity, and inclusion story. At the conclusion of that, in real inclusion happens when you belong, when you and I feel like we are part of, not to fit in, not to just fit in, but we are part of and we can contribute. So we bring the I back in we in the right kind of way and make the we better because of how we contribute and are able to optimize our own contributions. And as a result, we bring out, develop more and better results of more value, and we enhance leadership because leadership helps to learn how to create conditions for that to occur. So this day, I want to challenge you around, do you think the offices that we have, that we currently are structured, that people are now thinking about returning to, are truly built inclusively? And are they intended to that? Because I want to read an article, or refer to an article by Emma Goldberg in today's New York Times, a 2-year, 50 million person experiment in changing how we work. And she starts with a quote that says, "The office was never one size fits all. It was one size fits some, with the expectation that everybody else would squeeze in." And that, she quotes a fellow by the name of Richard, I think his last name is Borge. Anyway, it really got me thinking. And as I read in the article, I started to get the perspective that I hadn't thought about. One small thing was, for example, temperature. Well, most offices are actually based on a temperature setting of 40-year-old men that weigh about 157 pounds. And you don't think about that. But if you've ever walked through a cube farm, you will see people, most often women, huddled up with shawls around them, a blanket over their laps, sometimes wearing fingerless gloves, if you can believe it. Because that's the setting that's there, that someone had determined is the right and fair setting. And, you may think, well, that's just a trivial matter. But in some ways, it's kind of rather symbolic. And so built around these rituals, because the data is, with literally thousands of people surveyed by all kinds of different institutions, highly credible institutions, there's an overwhelming support for the ability and autonomy and flexibility to work from home when it's required. And there are many, many reasons. And mostly, frankly, the data is that it's senior managers, and by just straight facts, most of that group are white males who want to return to the office, because the office was really comfortable for them. And I know that may make you mad, and you may get all pissed off and think I'm just being politically correct. Well, go ahead, get pissed off. Look at the data. open yourself up to some perspective there. You just may find out that you've got some biases and assumptions that you think are nonsense that maybe worth revisiting. There are a lot of things that are built on forcing people to fit in these office environments, rather than inviting people to bring their true authentic self to really, which is really one key ingredient of belonging. The article goes on to say that, and point out, and got great anecdotes, which supported by data, that that many other groups that typically they have flourished more completely, women, minorities, actually in a remote environment, because often they have a little bit of distance from them and some of the institutional biases that are attached inside the actual walls of a campus or a set of cubes that have framed up the office. And it took an unintended 2-year experiment of 50 million people to help get a better insight on that. So there are a lot of rituals there that have been built on some historical things around, whether you joined the fantasy football game, football club or not, or whether you, show up and have a beer, which is not accessible to everybody, and a variety of other kind of things that would be naturally just considered to be just acceptable, okay things. And I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying we need to be mindful that sometime then it makes assumptions about people belonging or fitting in or don't, or not being team players, or you name it. So there's something there. This article is worth a read. And it's not everybody subscribes to New York Times, so you may not want to do it and get it, but there are other pieces of data and perspective there. Just don't work from the assumption that those cubes, because they all look and feel the same, because the facilities Nazis walk around and make sure you can't put a plant in a corner in a lot of places because you don't want to be different, that they are inclusive, because often they're not, and what happens around them is not. So this is another voice for actually understanding that remote working can actually increase belonging, can increase individuality, and people being able to bring their true authentic self to work, can increase a sense of togetherness. Do not just assume that people get lonely and can't be connected. That doesn't mean that you've got to throw another Zoom happy hour or have another Zoom trivia night, which is, maybe just another transported craziness that we in best intended, by the way. And I've tried to do some of that stuff too. But just don't assume that that we can take all those traditions also that historically were part of the office, and they do add to belonging and contribution. We need to think about this differently. Think about belonging differently. Think about autonomy differently. Think about flexibility. And please, if people are in shift work and they've got to show up, that also does not mean that you cannot engage in conversations around how to add more flexibility into people's lives. Look, challenge your assumptions about the office and how inclusive the office space really is. And I'll just leave one final thing for you. Do you think with rising gas prices going to a record level that you as a leader calling team members in for a 2-hour meeting so they can make a 2-hour commute for a 2-hour meeting makes any sense? So not only did we learn over the last couple of years, but also give some consideration to wondering where we're going, the environment we're going into, and how much you need to embrace flexibility, autonomy, working from home as part of your inclusion/belonging initiative. Don't just assume that everybody's sitting back in the cubes and going into the lunchroom means that you brought belonging back to the business. You haven't necessarily. You may actually have widened the gap. There you go. A little insight, hopefully a little challenge of your assumptions. I am going to every one of these sessions. I'm going to raise and challenge an assumption or bring a story, a perspective that makes us think. And I hope you'll join me because this belonging journey is vital to our advancement as humankind. And you're part of it. Thanks for co-creating it with us. Join me on Twitch if you can, just a half hour or so. Hang out, live stream, come in and chat there and find my channel, Leadership from the News, Lauren Rubis. Express your voice, you know, including things like as simple as booing out Alex Ovechkin, the player for the Washington Capitals, you name it. Anyway, wrap it up. Join us on our socials. Thanks for hanging out. See you next Thursday or Friday. Bye for now.